It's chaos.
It's a different type of Sunday scary.
It's your newest obsession.
It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast.
We're the Hornsby sisters. I'm Katie.
And I'm Megan.
Hey everyone. Thank God we are back to a race week because last week was the longest week of my life with no race. And we're not just back for any race, but we are back for round 18 in Mexico, in Checo's hometown, which we were unfortunately unable to race here last year due to COVID. So we're back, baby. We're back in Mexico, and it's going to be an absolute fabulous time. I can just feel it. We have a hearty episode for you today. We've got a couple of things going on. First, we're going to take a look at Scuderia AlphaTauri and the teammate duo of Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly. They've been having a ton of fun, both on track and off track this season. Specifically off track, they got dressed up in some lederhosen and got on a rowboat in Austria. And in the US, we saw them show up in their full driver's kit to the basketball shootout, and then proceeded to eat burgers on track. So they have just been a lovely duo to keep an eye on. Then we are going to hear from a new friend in Formula One, Reagan Hardy, and we're just going to talk about some things that Reagan wants to talk about and the things that she's going to bring to the table. And finally, we are going to preview the Mexican GP because if you forgot, it's race week. Now let's hop into our second team deep dive on Scuderia AlphaTauri. They are an Italian Formula One racing team and constructor. They are based in Faenza, Italy, under the leadership of Franz Tost. We have seen struggles and successes in the past 2 years with AlphaTauri. We've seen Pierre's demotion from Red Bull and his fiery return to AlphaTauri in 2020. And upon his return, Pierre achieved the team's first podium finish and race victory under the AlphaTauri name at the 2021 Italian Grand Prix in Monza. And I tell you, Monza screams redemption. It was his first race victory and the first win in 24 years for a French Formula One driver, ever since Olivier Panis won the 1996 Monaco Grand Prix. With Daniel Kvyat and Pierre, the team finished 7th place with 107 points. In 2021, we saw the release of Daniel for Japanese rookie Yuki Tsunoda, a young talent from the Red Bull driver program who has been sponsored by Honda for years. He took 3rd place in the 2020 Formula 2 championships, and we love Yuki. In 2021, we have seen plenty of great driving from both Pierre and Yuki. Pierre scored the team's first podium of the year by finishing in 3rd place at the 2020 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Yuki has had an incredible rookie year. He took 9th place in his first ever F1 race, with his best finish at the Hungaroring in 6th after he started 16th. And both Gasly and Yuki have been retained for 2022, and we can't wait to see them next year. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's jump into the background of the team. They are one of 2 teams owned by the Austrian energy drink company Red Bull. And the team rebranded for the 2020 season from Scuderia Toro Rosso to Scuderia AlphaTauri to promote Red Bull's fashion brand, AlphaTauri. The clothing company was founded in 2016 as an extension of the Red Bull name, and that name actually comes from Alpha Taurus, which is a giant star in the Taurus constellation. And basically, it just pays homage to their parent brand, Red Bull. Scuderia Toro Rosso was positioned as Red Bull's junior team, but Franz Tost, the team chief, and Helmut Marko, the team advisor to Red Bull's 2 teams, have made it very clear that AlphaTauri is no longer a junior team, but more like a sister team to Red Bull. And just like Red Bull, AlphaTauri uses the Honda engine, and they signed the contract with Honda in 2018. Again, Honda is leaving F1 at the end of this season, but Red Bull gets to hold on to the rights and the proprietary information about the Honda engine. So we will honestly just have to wait and see how well Red Bull does without Honda being in the F1 picture. So under their previous name, Scuderia Toro Rosso, the team raced for 14 seasons between 2006 and 2019. And the Australian businessman Paul Stoddart purchased Minardi, which was an Italian automobile racing team founded in Faenza in 1979 by Giancarlo Minardi. And in 2001, to prevent the team from folding, that's why Paul Stoddart bought the team. Minardi competed in Formula One from 1985 to 2005 with little success, but very loyal fans. And as a junior team, and it's often the first step for drivers out of the Red Bull Junior Driver Program. The Scuderia has launched the careers of many talents, including Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, and even Alex Albon, who will be back next year after spending this year as a test driver for Red Bull. The relationship between Toro Rosso and Red Bull has been one that has changed over the years. We have definitely seen them as a B team to Red Bull, producing so many great talents early on in their careers before they officially moved up to the big Red Bull team. However, now, especially after the downfall of both Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon in the Red Bull second seats, we are seeing AlphaTauri act more as a sister team rather than a B team or building team. Scuderia Toro Rosso was established after Paul Stoddart sold his remaining interest in the Minardi team at the end of 2005 to Red Bull's owner Dietrich Mateschitz, which is one of the co-founders of Red Bull. And initially the team was a 50-50 joint ownership between Red Bull and the former Formula One driver Gerhard Berger. In November 2008, Red Bull took ownership of Toro Rosso after buying back Berger's share of the team. Toro Rosso saw plenty of successes, including the first team points scored in their first season at the 2006 United States Grand Prix by Vitantonio Luizzi. And of course, Sebastian Vettel started his career at Toro Rosso, scoring the team's first podium, only pole position, and victory at the 2008 Italian Grand Prix. And the 2008 season was a high point in the Toro Rosso history, having consistently scored points in the last third of the season to finish sixth in the constructors and ahead of their parent team, Red Bull. Max Verstappen is the youngest Toro Rosso driver to compete in Formula One at 17 years and 166 days old at the 2015 Australian Grand Prix. And of course, we have now seen Max Verstappen race for 7 total seasons in Red Bull style, and we're hoping that he may be able to score his first driver's championship this year. All in all, Toro Rosso has brought great success to Formula One. They have been a great constructor and a great team that funnels good drivers into the Red Bull team. Let's take a quick look at our 2 drivers. Let's start with Pierre Gasly, the French racing driver, and Gasly's family has long been involved in motorsports. His grandfather competed in karting, and his father, Jean-Jacques, has competed in various categories of racing, including karting, endurance racing, and rallying. In 2017, Pierre made his Formula One debut at the Malaysian Grand Prix with Scuderia Toro Rosso. In 2019, he was contracted to drive for Red Bull Racing for that season, partnering with Max Verstappen following the departure of Daniel Ricciardo to Renault. And unfortunately, Gasly struggled with Red Bull and really never found the pace that Max Verstappen had. He ended up being let go by Red Bull very early on in the season, just after a few races and ahead of the 2019 Belgian Grand Prix. That's when he was demoted back to the junior team of Toro Rosso, with Alex Albon taking his place. In 2022, he was back with Toro Rosso, or should I say AlphaTauri, partnered with Daniel Kvyat. After his win and redemption in Monza 2020, there was an increased speculation that Gasly would return to Red Bull as a replacement for Alex Albon, who only finished 15th in the Drivers' Championship. Team principal Franz Tost praised Gasly's race, but dismissed the possibility of Gasly returning to Red Bull soon. In 2021, at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, we saw Gasly get his third career podium after a battle with Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris for third place on the final lap. And I've said this, I would say almost every episode, but Pierre Gasly is the underdog of the grid. He has the talent and the speed and the agility to be a great driver. He just needs a better car beneath him. And unfortunately, his confidence just was not there for him when he joined Red Bull, and it was clear that he wasn't ready. I think if you would have given Pierre Gasly a chance this year or even next year, we would have seen excellence. But it takes a lot to drive next to Max Verstappen, and unfortunately, Pierre didn't have it. I would love to see him return to the Red Bull team, but I think even more, I would love to see him return to another constructor and really see what he's able to do within that team. And then we have Yuki Tsunoda, who apparently is just the kindest person you'll ever meet. Hopefully one day we'll be able to shake hands because he is incredible. And he has been supported by Honda since 2016 through the Honda Formula Dream Project, which is the Japanese manufacturer's young driver program. And he really found success there. He finished third in his first year at the program and won the championship the next year in 2018, including 5 of the 6 opening races. But most of these wins were in front of Honda Motorsport boss Masahi Yamamoto, which was vital to Tsunoda's career because he would go on to recommend him to Helmut Marko of Red Bull. He had his Formula One debut in 2021 with AlphaTauri, and this season he has scored points on his debut, staying true to his aggressive brand of driving. He achieved, again, his best Formula One result at the Hungaroring, where he started 16th and improved to 7th before he was promoted to 6th after Sebastian Vettel's disqualification due to not enough fuel to sample, if you recall. Overall, he has kind of had an up and down season with 6 top 10 finishes interspersed by a flurry of mistakes, from spinning to crashes to getting in the way of other drivers. He has had a phenomenal rookie year, and Red Bull has kept their faith in Tsunoda. He will be retained for next year, and they actually brought on Alex Albon to offer advice in an informal way from his own experience, considering his previous struggles being fast-tracked into F1 in 2019. So although we did not see Alex Albon on the grid this year, he definitely played a huge role in the behind-the-scenes atmosphere and achievements of Red Bull. AlphaTauri is one of those teams that you can't help but root for. They make up the lower end of the mid-range grid, but we will continue to see how well they improve, especially Pierre Gasly. He's been on fire this year. I think next year he'll have the fire beneath him even more with not being promoted. And then we've got Yuki Tsunoda, who will be in his sophomore year of F1. He'll have gotten through all of the jitters of his rookie season, and if he does as well as he has done this year, we are in for a real treat next year. Currently, AlphaTauri sits in 6th place in the Constructors' Championship, with Pierre Gasly in 9th with 74 points and Yuki Tsunoda in 14th with 20 points, giving them a total of 94 points for the season. As long as we don't see any more DNFs the rest of the year, I would say that AlphaTauri is in the running for 5th place. AlphaTauri is just 10 points behind Alpine, and we will have to wait and see who takes 5th behind Ferrari and McLaren in their battle for 3rd. All right, so I'm so excited because we're trying something new this week. We have a special guest, a new friend of mine, Reagan, and we're going to jump right in. Reagan, you want to go ahead and say hello?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Reagan. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and Katie is a new friend, and I'm very excited to be on.
Oh, and we are so lucky to have you. So my first question for you is, how did you get into Formula One?
So I got into Formula One because I've always been an avid sports fan, and I went to Indiana University, and so my senior year I decided that I'd been at the school for 4 years and I needed to know what the Indy 500 was. So I had been talking to my dad, and I couldn't quite figure out what was the difference between IndyCar and F1, and he said, check out this documentary on Netflix. I'm sure it'll clear up a few things. So I got into the sport through Drive to Survive.
Yeah, like most people do. And
exactly.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because how this is going to work is when we have guests on, they're going to bring topics that they want to talk about. And one of the topics that Reagan wants to talk about is Drive to Survive. And so I don't know if you know about the drama that kind of gets surrounded around Drive to Survive. A lot of the drivers don't really stand for it. Max Verstappen thinks it adds drama and adds these rivalries. So how do you think it frames the sport?
So I think that it's a double-edged sword, to say it nicely. You can get the sport out to hundreds of people. I think last weekend in COTA we really saw that, the number of people that showed up was astronomical, which is just showing how much the sport's really grown. But we also have it from the driver's side and them saying, we don't love it. There's a lot of, this added drama element when a lot of them are good friends. And so I think it's kind of tough because as viewers, we like kind of seeing the more personal side of the sport and the fact that there are really only 20 of them and how they all interact with each other. But it's reality TV at the end of the day. And while it's not the Kardashians, it's still a little hyped up at times.
Yeah, definitely. Who do you think is your favorite driver duo that you've got to see through the show?
I mean, it has to be Carlos and Lando. They're just an iconic duo.
An iconic duo,
yes.
Yeah. And I think Drive to Survive framed their friendship really well. I actually just watched that episode. I was rewatching it the other day, and they handled that a lot differently, especially when Carlos announced that he was going to Ferrari. They handled that a lot differently than they handled the Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen, Red Bull departure.
Yep, I completely agree. And I think that when you kind of see them as a duo, it's, right when Carlos and Lando, meet each other at McLaren, and it's right when we kind of see McLaren growing in the sport and kind of how they've evolved over the last couple years. And I think that that's kind of a cool thing that, me learning the sport through Drive to Survive, it was kind of I associated them with McLaren at the beginning before Carlos moved. So that was kind of cool.
We have seen great growth from McLaren, and I think part of it is them switching back to a Mercedes engine. Do you think there are any other reasons why McLaren has seen such improvements over the past, 3 years maybe?
Being a Cleveland fan, you have to think of, the team mentality, and I think that, Zach Brown leads a very strong team, and I always like to think that it's not just you have to give the scientists and all the engineers a ton of credit, but you also have to kind of think maybe it is a good team mentality and good people that, want to see this team excel. And I always have to root for the underdog. So there's got to be a little the underdog spirit in there as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we talked about it in another episode, but Zach Brown comes from a really different background. He ran a marketing company, and we got to really know Carlos and Lando through their marketing bits and through their little, like, meet the driver duos, which I think is also a great way to meet the drivers, especially if you're a little wary of the drama that gets brought into Drive to Survive.
Definitely. I think that that's kind of one of the things that people either love or they hate. It kind of takes away from the driving aspect. So that's kind of one of those unique things that makes Drive to Survive so great, is there's something in it for everybody. Whether you're interested in the drama or you like the actual sport side of seeing, you know, the behind the scenes of the drivers working with the engineers.
Definitely. And, okay, so I have to ask, because you brought it up. You said it perfectly. In Drive to Survive, there's so many different elements, which is the same in Formula One. So if you had to pick one part of Formula One that's your favorite, maybe it is the drama. From what I can tell, it's not the engineering. What do you think is your favorite thing?
I think that one thing that makes Formula One unique and that's really cool about it is the fact that it really expands globally, and that a lot of sports, like soccer or football, for example, like it's not as prominent in the United States as some other areas. And I think that Formula One's growing in the US and that it travels to so many different unique countries that's something that like really sets it apart. And each week, like when you're watching the races, it's almost like you're going there too. I don't go as far as like when my grandpa watches the Discovery Channel, he says he goes on vacation there. Like I'm not telling my family I'm in like Mexico City that week or like Spa, but I am saying, you know, like it's cool to see like the streets of Monaco or really some unique places.
I love how you said that. One thing that people forget about a lot is how diverse the drivers and the schedule is. You have a chance to go to a race at any part of the world. And I think that's a true unique thing about Formula One that we don't see in any other sport, other than football, maybe, soccer. I have to clarify that.
Right. I'm like, okay, depending on who's listening.
Yeah, depending on who's listening, soccer. We're going into a triple header. We've got Mexico, then we have Brazil, and we have Qatar. And I know one thing that you wanted to talk about was the rivalry between Lewis and Max this year. So how do you think the next 3 races are going to play out for the two of them?
I think it's going to be a very interesting next couple weeks, especially with how close they are on points. And I don't know about you, but I was on the edge of my seat at the beginning of COTA, and I kept saying we were watching as a family, and I was like, they're going to hit each other. Like, there's no way that they make it out of that first turn. And sure enough, they did. And we got to watch a very exciting race, but I think you're on your toes for sure. I think it's going to heat up, and it'll be really interesting to see, you know, if one pulls away as a clear leader.
Yeah. And I think, like, this triple header is what is going to set the rest of the season. I know we only have 5 races left. We have a triple header, then we have a break for Thanksgiving, and then we have a double header. And I truly believe that whatever happens in these next 3 weeks is going to set the pace for the last 2 races of the year.
It's really going to set the drivers and the teams apart. The triple header and then the double header is going to be tough for the drivers and for the teams. And I think that that's going to almost make the title races and the championship even more tight and exciting, because it's so back-to-back that there's really not a ton of downtime for the drivers.
And there's really not any room for error.
No.
Like, this is make or break. Like, if they hit each other and one of them is still in and one of them is still out, that could cost the championship.
Absolutely.
For the one who's out.
Right. It will be, especially given how the last part of the season has been going. I think that that's definitely happened before, and I think that the points are going to be so crucial that that's not, hopefully we don't see that happen, but you never know with those two.
No, you don't. What do you think would make this sport more appealing to people our age?
I think that this sport could become something that our age range really enjoys, but the issue is the timing and the fact that a lot of the races are not in, US time zone, so people are waking up really early, and on Sunday mornings that can be a challenge. And so I think that if major news networks did a better job of trying to, even ESPN, of trying to like rerun the race later in the day, it would be like a great brunch activity, like going and getting mimosas and having like a big brunch for 2 hours while you watch the race could be really cool. But it's definitely hard on Sundays with football in the US, and that kind of takes over a lot of the channels. I know with the rise of streaming, we were fortunate enough we watched it on YouTube TV last weekend, which was awesome. But I think that like marketing it obviously would do wonders, but the big thing is the timing. And depending how much of a fan you are, you don't want to go on social media because you know you're going to find out who won, so you're torn to like going off the grid for a couple hours until you can watch.
I like what you said about rerunning, and it's hard too because NFL Sundays, and then before we know it, it's basketball, and then before we know it, it's hockey or baseball. Yeah, we've got so much here, but
or it's NASCAR, and that's taking up, or IndyCar, and so it kind of is like it's one thing after the other, and at the end of the day, a lot of these channels just want to see what's going to get them the most views and what their viewers want to see. And so a lot of times it's not Formula One. I think that hopefully as the sport grows and we see that demand kind of uptick, they'll find a way, whether that's a different channel or something else, to kind of help the sport grow. And it'll be interesting to see even like Netflix, if Netflix decides to try to find some sort of streaming platform. They already kind of have their foot in the door with Formula One. I think that would be a great networking way for them to kind of get into the sport and say, you know, we're going to try to partner with F1 and it's another package, but you can stream the races. And that's kind of a unique way to say, you know, like, let's combine these things and grow this like huge fan base in the US that's untouched.
Yeah, I love that idea. That would be genius if Netflix did that. So you heard it here first, Netflix, if you're listening.
Go partner with F1.
Yeah, go partner with F1 and get us some streaming rights.
And give Dirty Driving a cut of that deal.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. Thanks for looking out, Reagan.
Of course.
She did go to IU, my alma mater as well. So you know us, business school kids. We're always trying to make money.
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you, Reagan, so much for being on. I have one last question for you. And it is, what is your favorite Formula One moment since you've been watching?
Okay, so since I've been watching, I kind of thought about this. And as much as I've loved seeing the title race, I think my favorite F1 moment this year was Monza. And seeing a shoey in a very long time. I was so excited. And obviously, Zach Brown was as well. We all saw the tattoo. So that has been my favorite moment. I don't think that I thought I would be that excited about seeing a grown man drink champagne out of a shoe, but I was. And the fact that the media surrounding it, and Valtteri Bottas somehow has never done a shoey, no matter how many times he has been on a podium with Ricciardo, blows my mind.
He always just sneaks up in the corner, like, I'll just hold my champagne
and pretend. And there was really like a media day moment or like some sort of press conference with him and Danny Rick, and he's like, "You've never done one?" And he's like, "No, man, and I don't want to." And I'm like, it's been years. Like, it's maybe one day.
Yeah. So does that make you a Daniel Ricciardo stan, or do we have a different driver as a favorite?
Oh, no, absolutely.
Absolutely. We love to hear that.
Yep. And Drive to Survive, if you watch the show and you are not a Daniel Ricciardo fan, I just kind of wonder how, because they do such a great job, and he is such a ham that he just eats it up.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yep.
We love him.
Absolutely.
Well, Reagan, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll have you back on again, but it was a pleasure talking to you.
It was great to talk to you, too, and thank you so much for letting me come on and share my experience with Formula One. It's been a great time.
Next up, Formula One races in the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for the home race of Sergio Perez. The 71-lap race takes place on Sunday, November 7th for round 18 of the season. And due to the pandemic, the Mexican GP was canceled in 2020, but here we are. It's race week, and for the second weekend in a row, we are in our time zone. I believe the race takes place at 1 p.m. Central Time, so we get to sleep in, and you know what? We get to have a little fiesta for the race. F1 held its first race here in 1963 at the original circuit Magdalena Mizhuca, which was the first international track in Mexico. F1 held its first race here in 1963 at the original circuit Magdalena Mizhuca, which was the first international track in Mexico. And like Monza, it was built in a park at the center of Mexico City. Racing returned to Mexico in 2015 after major upgrades to the previously run-down Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. In the last 4 Mexican Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton has won 2 in 2019 and 2016, and Max Verstappen has won the other 2 in 2018 and 2017. This year, Verstappen enters the race weekend 12 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Lots of speculation has taken place in the last week. Most agree that Red Bull has the advantage this weekend for 2 reasons. The track sits at 2 kilometers above sea level, the highest elevation of the season, which offers an advantage to Red Bull. Second, there are still some questions over the Mercedes engine, and we have to ask if Lewis will take another penalty this weekend. Checo's performance, specifically his pace and defense, is looking stellar, and it is his home race. I would love to see him win it. And as much talk as we have had over Max and Lewis going into this race, could Checo really take the win? Ferrari and McLaren are separated by 3.5 points after a race that showed Ferrari's pace with an excellent performance from Charles Leclerc. The McLaren struggled, but Ricciardo seems to have figured the car out, and it will be interesting to see how both of the cars perform in qualifiers and on Sunday. After missing the race last year, we are excited for the return of Mexico and even more excited for a potential Checo home victory. Join us next week for our race recap on the Mexican GP.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us at Dirty Driving Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Until next time, stay dirty.